Sonic has always been the odd man out for me. Now, what do I mean by that? It has always been this monolithic IP that I've always known about and even known a few details from time to time, but has always been just a series that passed me by. I never really watched the cartoons, I never really played the games outside of dipping my toe in occasionally. And back in the day, there were two main games that I dipped my proverbial toe in. I never finished either of them, but Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic Unleashed at least introduced me to the gameplay loop, roughly at least, for Sonic. I have one of the Sonic Riders games on the GameCube, but I'm not even sure how much I played of that. And something rather interesting happened over the last year in regards to my channel. I noticed quite a few people in my community were massive Sonic fans. So I decided, well, I don't want to be the odd one out in this scenario, so let's take a deep dive into Sonic. Let's try the games, make our own conclusions, and go in with an open mind. A series, let alone a genre of game that I've rarely ever had experience with. I was going into this rather fresh. And the only Sonic game I quote-unquote beat was arguably Sonic 2 on my Switch, but I abused save states so much for that game that I would hardly even say that I technically beat it. But I decided Sonic Unleashed was going to be the first game in this series I was going to deep dive into. I had played Sonic Unleashed a little bit before. I had gotten to Missouri, but back in the day, it just wasn't my cup of tea, the game itself, so I dropped it and moved on. And over the course of playing Sonic Unleashed, I realized a few things. 1, I'm god-awful at Sonic games. 2, I like learning about how to get better at Sonic games. And 3, a lot of preconceived notions started to, well, kind of wither and decay to the roadside, if you will. One of the major hangups I had with Sonic up to this point, before I even played it, was the overall aesthetic. Nowadays, I'm not so big on the whole cartoon animal, mascot. Sonic being one of the poster boys for this idea and this concept, and the idea of mixing kind of modern aesthetics and regular people alongside Sonic the freaking Hedgehog and Tails just was something that I assumed would be off-putting to me. And then I started playing Sonic Unleashed, and I quickly stopped caring. It's almost as if a switch had flipped in my mind, and I just stopped really caring, and honestly, I found a bit of a, what's the phrase? An appeal to it. It's wacky and goofy, but kind of just has an aesthetic all of its own. Now, I was also made aware of one really easy concept. Sonic Unleashed was a hard Sonic game to have as your first. It is a difficult game where two genres kind of collide here, where you have the day cycle and the night cycle, and in the day stages, you play as traditional 3D Sonic levels, rushing across various maps trying to collect rings, acquire day and night medals for overall completion and to progress the story, but also going as fast as you can to beat the stage as quickly as you can and with as much score as you can. But Sonic Unleashed, even back in the day, because I knew of these conversations that were going on, was a really polarizing game mainly for the night stages. The night stages take a sharp detour from traditional Sonic formula. The gameplay is far more slower paced, where it's more actiony and leaning into combos and progression of your quote-unquote werehog than actually trying to accomplish the level in a fast manner. And I tend to find people generally of one of two camps. Either they unabashedly adore Sonic Unleashed, or they absolutely detest it. Obviously, there's some room in the middle there, but I tend to find more so for Unleashed than any other Sonic game I've heard about or experienced. This game is arguably the most polarizing, and that's at least from an outsider's perspective. I think after having played it, I lean towards liking to loving it, but there's a few massive hangups that I have with the game. So let's talk about Sonic Unleashed as I give my review of Sonic Unleashed. Okay, what are the pros? Let's start with the good. The day stages and the overall level design is S tier. Jesus Christ, is Sonic just on another level when it comes to level design. What I really love and adore about Unleashed, especially the day stages, is how the game is able to reward or give you punishments naturally through the gameplay mechanics. Not necessarily through a failure state. What do I mean by this? If you find shortcuts and you input the controls in the right way, you'll not only gain more rings, which make you go faster, but you'll go in different routes and different paths that are easier, or at least faster, so you maintain this sense of speed going through the level, and you zip on by it, and you feel really good. You get this visual cue that you are doing something right because you're able to maintain this speed and go this fast for extended periods of time. But if you go the wrong way or you miss a shortcut, you may be forced to do a side activity or go through some kind of obstacle or puzzle that takes you longer, where you have to slow down to a snail's pace and make your way across it. You may miss a jump and then all of a sudden be knocked down to the bottom of a pit and have to slowly climb your way up through various obstacles, moving platforms, and flamethrowers. However, if you have made the jump, you would just boost on by all of this. So the game, instead of giving you a punishment or taking away health or whatever, it forces you, by being suboptimal, to do harder and slower platforming. And it can vary how it does that. And I think that's a brilliant idea, because once that clicked in my mind, I was able to understand, oh wait, there's a better way to do this. I must have missed a shortcut, because this game, generally speaking, wouldn't have me doing this if I had hit a shortcut before. To me, that is brilliant intuitive design, where the whole moniker for the franchise is gotta go fast. And one of the rewards of actually playing the game well and keeping an eye open and trying new pathways to see which is faster is going faster. That is a great, mechanical feedback loop that makes me want to replay these levels to get better at. I got about 4 S ranks throughout my entire playthrough of Unleashed. We'll go back to Unleashed at some point down the line to try and get more S ranks, but I got 4 right now. And I was near a 5th one, with Shamai Day Stage Act 1. I got an A rank. I was so close to an S. So I think this overall concept and design philosophy for the day stages in Sonic Unleashed was a really intuitive one that gave the game a great formula that made me want to get better at it. And it's one of those examples where video games don't just have to punish you with a game over or a failure state. They can punish you or give you consequences for your actions in different ways and give you that feedback loop passively or indirectly. Now, I generally favor the day stages to the night stages. My main issue with the night stages is you have all of these combos at your disposal, and most of the time, I boil it all down to kind of like 3 of them. XXYYY, YY, XXX, or just spamming the Y button repeatedly. Generally speaking, I haven't really found anything in this game that called for any other combo. And while some of those combinations are really cool, they kind of felt like filler, to me at least. They also felt really segmented and separate from one another, and I think one of the beauties of a combo system like this is the ability to interweave going from one combo to the next, and getting a sustained combo rhythm going that I never really found or managed to achieve, at least for me, in Sonic Unleashed night stages. It normally just kind of boiled down to me spamming the same combo over and over and over again, dodging when I needed to, or using the throw button when I needed to. And that throw button, though, quite a few of the enemies in this game felt like they were designed to be beaten by hitting the B button. I used the Xbox for this. To where you would weaken them to such a state where you could grab them or do some kind of combo, and it would throw you into a QTE. Sonic Unleashed absolutely adores its QTEs, for better or for worse. I think they're good in the day stages, I think they're rather poor in the night stages. Now, why do I like them in the day stages? Because it gives you the opportunity to take a slight breather, but if you do it correctly, it again rewards you with that sense of speed and going even faster or going to a new route that you may not have realized you could have gone down beforehand. I like that. And most of the time, I felt like I had enough time to actually input the controls. When it comes to the night stages, I felt like the game's innate game input delay, with which this may just have been a thing on Xbox. I was playing on the Xbox One, backwards compatible with the 360 version digitally. But this game had some insane input delay, to where I would hit the QTE while the prompt was still on screen and it told me I'd still had time, and the input delay would push it to it wouldn't register it until after the QTE was already done. This happened so many times in the night stages where it just made me stop hitting the B button for those finishes. I just didn't do them. I would just use regular combos to finish it because the input delay was so bad. But I do like the idea of the werehog. Look, I think it's cool having Sonic have this, like, stronger form that's not just supersonic, where he focuses more on melee combat. And I even mentioned this on stream. I think the things I would have loved to see for a werehog gameplay section would be things like adding parry, and having those combos kind of like flow into one another, like I said before, but mainly having some kind of parry with the shield. And then a member of my community kind of pointed out that a lot of the things I was saying on stream at the time were just kind of additions they made to Sonic Frontiers, so I'm really looking forward to that game when we eventually get to it. Having said that, boss design. Hit or miss for me. Most of them are forgettable, like I couldn't tell you what most of the bosses even were in this game, especially when it concerns the night stages, because a lot of the times they just kind of felt like glorified regular mobs where I was just dodging their attacks every now and then just doing the same combo over and over and over again. There's this one that was kind of cool near the end where you had to like push these things onto like a conveyor belt to go up to an altar to like weaken the boss, and spikes would raise out of the floor to give you different paths you would have to walk down. A little tedious, but it was memorable at least. One of the things I did really like about the night stages though was the platforming, funnily enough. There's like one section in the Missouri night stage where it was just annoying for me, trying to solve this one puzzle, but outside of that, I really like the platforming, and maybe it's because I grew up with games like Sly Cooper or Ratchet and Clank, where that type of 3D platforming really reminds me of my PlayStation platformer origins. So those sections kind of clicked for me, and I really enjoyed getting better at them and becoming more confident in them. But when it concerns the day stages, I think level design is key. Every day stage that I can think of had brilliant level design and just location layout. The only ones I was kind of here or there on was Holoska, because I don't enjoy the ice mechanics being so floaty. Because Sonic by himself in the day stages is really floaty when it comes to like low speeds. That's like doubly true when it comes to ice, because he's really floaty by design, but he also like slides around everywhere like an asshole. But outside of that, I think the level design was so interesting and unique that it kind of drew you in and made you really care about each of these locations in these zones, because they are so imaginative a lot of the times. Like, does it make sense that in Empire City that there's a giant loop-de-loop in the highway? No, but it looked cool. Was it cool running across the sides of buildings? Yeah. Was it cool running through all these like falling ruins in Shama? Yeah. Bouncing between the pillars? Yeah, that's cool. It looked really visually and even mechanically fun. And it was fun. And I enjoyed that grind of like learning over time as I played the game both on stream and off, getting better at the game, becoming more accustomed to the control scheme. I don't mind difficult experiences. I may cuss up a storm on stream, but I do enjoy them. And just seeing and looking back to how bad I was at Sonic Unleashed when I first started the game to where I eventually ended up, I can see that progress. I wouldn't say I'm good at Sonic or anything like that, but it's a far cry from where I was. And I think that's a testament to the game design on display with Sonic Unleashed, to where the game over time will teach you passively, through the gameplay mechanics, getting better at the game, picking up new tricks, picking up new little techniques that you can implement by yourself, or just through sheer repetition, get better at until you succeed, and then you can make use of those mechanics later on in the game. That's why I like Eggman Land. I think the one issue I have with Eggman Land, right, is just how long it is. If they split it up into 5 different stages like they did on the Wii apparently, I would be far more receptive to Eggman Land, because each individual section of Eggman Land is really well designed in my opinion. They're fun and interesting, and they make use of a lot of the lessons you learn in the game up to that point. And says, okay, you experienced this entire game up to this point, you got all these medals to get to this point, now show us what you learned. And I love the idea of interweaving the day stages and the night stages, and going from one to the other. That's an idea I kind of wish they implemented a bit more before this. And then you have, in my opinion, the best boss fight in the entire game, with the Egg Dragoon. Seriously, it's so cinematic and cool. It's a really easy fight, but it's really cool how it's executed. And it has some mechanics that are relatively easy, but they're fun to dodge and make use of. Like falling through the freaking sky, going from platform to fight the Egg Dragoon, was really cool as Night Stage Sonic, as the Werehog. Now, spoilers, I hated the final boss. If I have one overarching weakness, one main issue with this game, it's the final boss of Dark Gaia. I did not enjoy it. Why did I not enjoy it? Well, one, I sucked at it, but also two, even if I did it first try, let's assume I did that. There's not one section of that fight, which is a long fight by the way, that I think lives up to its potential. What do I mean by this? Okay, so when it happened, when the Dark Gaia fight happened, I was hyped because we formed a giant like mech made of scattered city parts. It reminded me of Alexander from, say, Final Fantasy IX or even Final Fantasy XIV. And I'm like, oh, dude, we're about to go into a boxing match between Dark Gaia and this giant city mech we made. That's such a cool idea. What did that fight boil down to? Most of it was us just flying to him, trying to dodge his odd attack every now and then with a punch button that was way too slow when you pressed it. Like, I know they're trying to make it feel as if there's weight behind that punch, but especially when you get closer to it, I just found it so awkward how when you punched, it would wait longer than when the rock that the Dark Gaia summoned to attack you, it would summon the rock, fire it, and it would hit you all before the animation would go off for your punch. That to me felt bad. And like, sure, there are ways around it. I did end up beating it actually, but I don't think it's mechanically satisfying, fun, or lives up to its potential when you give me this giant cool cinematic encounter and most of it boils down to either a QTE up close or most of the fight is just flying towards him. Especially when you had like half the game up to this point, if not more, be a combo-oriented fighter beat-em-up. Make use of those mechanics with this giant mech. Let me be a little bit faster with it. Who cares? It's Sonic. The name of the game is speed to begin with. Give me a few rudimentary combos and let me go to town on this thing. That to me would be far more mechanically satisfying and engaging than what ended up being Dark Gaia. And then for the day sections in the Dark Gaia fight where you're playing as Sonic running across, why was the time limit there? And like the time limit was like weirdly stringent, where it felt like I had to pretty much basically S-rank that little portion in order to proceed. It was just kind of annoying, and those fireballs, like those things' hitboxes were god-awful. The fireball would be like 5 feet above me and it would still hit me. It was just a bunch of mechanics and input delay or animation lock that, when all taken together in that one fight, led to frustration and just annoyance. And then you unlock Super Sonic, right? A really cool idea. We saw what he was capable of in that opening cinematic, which was awesome, yeah? So, when you get Super Sonic, what do? Do you go up and fight Dark Gaia itself? You know, go mano-a-mano? A giant fight, like Dragon Ball style? No. You fight some tentacles on the outside of a shield, while Chip controls the actual mech and has a QTE section pretty much on the inside. Like, he's playing the part I wanted to play. And I'm stuck out here, like, on the surface of a sphere, trying to fight off these, like, weird snake things that would go inside the shield, which would just make me stand there looking like an idiot, waiting for the snake parts to come back out so that I can hit them. Each of those ideas and mechanics could have been so cool, but they just went with the safest approach possible. And overall, when taken as a collective, it just made the Dark Gaia fight feel wholly unsatisfying and honestly pedestrian. I did not enjoy that fight whatsoever, and it was a shame because I enjoyed the game up to that point so much, and I thought it almost peaked with, say, Eggman Land and Egg Dragoon. I don't think that one fight is enough to, like, tarnish the overarching game itself. It's just one of those where it's like, huh, that's disappointing. But the game itself is still really fun and interesting and mechanically satisfying. And I don't know if Sonic Unleashed will end up being my favorite Sonic game. Just from what I've seen and, like, the demo I've played on the Switch, Frontiers may take that. But I think as a first Sonic game, I'm really happy that I started with Unleashed. It made me want to play the other games, try their unique styles and twists on this formula, get better at the game. I like being thrown into the deep end. I don't mind that challenge. And I want to go back to Sonic Unleashed at some point in the future after I have a few more Sonic games under my belt and come back and see where I lay, you know? And compare the progress I have right now to where I was when I first started to then, after all this experience accumulates itself later on. I think Sonic is really fun, and I am really looking forward to where the series goes from here, but also playing the other games. I got a lot to catch up on. It's a big IP with a lot of potential and hit and misses here and there, but I see why this game has had such a solid fan base for so long, and I mean Sonic in this regard, because that core gameplay loop is really fun and really satisfying. It's juxtaposed with a few things that I think are a little bit underdeveloped or just don't hit the mark, but it's still a fun time overall, and I'm gonna look back on Sonic Unleashed in the future positively. And funnily enough, now that I talk about it right now, it's kind of a chapter closing in my life, because I played Sonic Unleashed back in the day in the PS3. I never finished it, but it was always a game that stuck in my mind, because I thought the concept of the werehog was really cool. And now I finally returned to form and managed to overcome that unfinished story. This book may be over, this story may be over, but plenty more to come. Sonic Adventure 2, yeah? You're up next. My community voted, by the way, both in a poll at the end of the Unleashed stream, but also in a community poll on my YouTube. Sonic Adventure 2 is up next, people. Get ready, because we're going in. Let's learn about Shadow the Hedgehog, shall we? So yeah, overall, thumbs up from me all around in terms of Sonic Unleashed. It has its issues, but I think the pros outweigh the cons. Thank you all for joining me on this little journey of ours. I can't wait to dive even further into the series and to play the other games. Let's go, people. We gotta go fast. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe. Have a great day. Make sure to leave a comment down below with what was your first Sonic game. Have you even ever played a Sonic game before? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions and to hear your stories. Stay safe. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.